All right, everybody. Welcome back to My Business World Live. I am your host, Billy Bush. Today, I am missing, of course, my compatriot. Brandon is enjoying the weekend, or at least getting her kicked off slightly early since we've got Memorial Day weekend ahead of us. And so he's taking advantage of that. So props to him. I should be there, but I'm not. Here I am talking to you. Anyway, this is today's show. We're going to kind of dive into a few things. One thing to note, if you do have a question or specific thing you want to explore in the given time we've got, feel free to leave a comment. We will definitely look at those comments. I will. I say we. There is only me today. And we'll get to a lot of those elements. So, a couple things that I want to dive into today. Just first of all, how the week has gone. We're jamming along. Things are starting to open up in certain states. Utah definitely is taking steps to kind of open up in a lot of ways. And we're starting to explore, I guess, what it's like. I actually went to a restaurant, believe it or not, yesterday. Inside, well, I guess technically it was on the patio, but regardless, it was actually a restaurant that we dined in at. So, tables spread way apart and everything else that goes along with that. But we did survive and enjoyed some luscious tacos that were very good from a place right near my home. And so we'll see how business continues to open back up. That being said, though, today, one of the things that we ran across working with a couple clients this week, a common theme came up around sales. And so I wanted to kind of share a little bit, some thoughts around that. And if you've got questions or comments around that specifically, whether it be sales struggles that you've had or other elements of that nature, maybe you don't have a defined sales process, I'm going to cover a few of those elements that we kind of talked about as something that did surface in a few of the feedback and questions that we got this week. So to kick off, let's go right into that. One of the elements when we look at a business, one of the primary elements and needs is really understanding their various processes, first of all. And typically when we're looking at it from a front end perspective, so what an actual customer, client, patient, person sees, we break it down into three different areas. You've got marketing, sales, and delivery. And just as simple as that, breaking down kind of the big, high categorical areas of your front end experience, we can break it into those kind of big primary categories. Now, obviously, they blend together in a lot of ways. I mean, there's lots of marketing activities that happen in delivery or vice versa, or there could be. But it helps us kind of think through a little bit more and analyze where we might have some significant gaps or vital elements that we need to explore and fix. Where are holes in our process, in our experience? And that's fundamental to experience design. We just want to understand where things are at. Often we span these gaps, of course. We don't focus in one area because experience doesn't stop, right? It's not, the relationship doesn't take a pause, and really it shouldn't. We want it to be a continuous, powerful experience all the way through. And so that's definitely one of the goals with it. But when you're looking at marketing, sales, and delivery, a lot of people, of course, think delivery. That's typically the one that is the most well addressed in some regard. It might not be highly systematized or automated or run like just a well-oiled machine, but it's generally where people tend to spend the most time, is just making sure that they actually deliver the service that they want to a point. Marketing tends to be the next element that they'll do some of. So it's like, oh yeah, we get some ads out, we do some whatever it might be, right? You send out a postcard, whatever it happens to be, maybe some referrals, those types of elements happen. But a lot of businesses, especially smaller businesses, tend to blend from marketing right into delivery, and they don't really capture the essence of what a true sales experience might be like. And so that's something that we realized is significantly lacking, probably more often than many other elements, is that sales experience. So this became an issue for a couple of companies that were actually doing quite well in a lot of ways that we were working with. And, they're at least chugging along. They, of course, want to grow faster and do more. But they're chugging along and surviving, everything that's going on right now, and just trying to figure out where can we expand. And when we got into it, it's like there's a little bit of marketing, a bit of delivery, and they did a good job, and that's what kept people happy and kept people coming back. but literally no sales process. I mean, basically, it was like when someone needs the service, they call and they schedule, and you can find this for yourself. It's very possible. Someone, if you're a medical professional, someone needs help. They need a dental work or an adjustment, a chiropractor, or whatever it might be. What do? Well, they found you by some maybe marketing means you have. You have a website, and they searched you, or they found you on Facebook, or whatever they did, and they call your office up, and someone schedules them, and you just kind of go into the office, and you get treated. Sometimes there's some form of like, yeah, here's your treatment, and then we do have these care packages, and that's really starting to touch on the sales process. So certain industries and spaces are going to press on this a little bit more, but many times they don't. It's like you go through it, you deliver the service, and you move on. But there are definitely spaces and industries, and really even these other industries that it's kind of baked in, or you feel like, well, why do I need that? If they need a filling and they call and get scheduled, and we just make sure that we get people scheduled, and then they're kind of taken care of. But if we're a little more intentional with the sales process, not only will we actually close more business that should happen, there's a lot of recommendations that people don't take, but we'll also realize that the experience that these people have, that our customers have, can go up, can be elevated by the sales process for various reasons. And one of them is miscommunication. That's one of the big issues that we see in whatever ad hoc sales process you might have, is certain elements are not communicated properly or misunderstood because we're kind of jumping right into delivery without fully grasping that someone needs to be sold, and not in any negative sense. Like I need to be convinced that this is the route I need to go. I need to feel like I have options. I need to, like, these are elements that people need and want. And so we have to be careful not to skip over it too quickly. And but oftentimes we don't even recognize that, or we don't even realize any frustrations there. It's just they need a service. They're a courier company. They call us. They need something delivered. We deliver it. Life goes on. And that's about where it's at. And it might be fine. They might not be negatively impacted, but are they recurring business? Maybe when the need arises again. I mean, there's all these other elements that start to show up. And so we start to realize how valuable it can be to define a sales experience for your company. This is a big deal. Every company has a sales experience. There is something that convinces someone to saddle up with your product or service, to actually part with their money and take on whatever it is. They have a significant need that you are addressing, or they think you're addressing, and they do it. And so there is a sales process there. Whatever it was that convinced them that you were the solution for their need is part of your sales process. So a lot of times it happens to us, and this is a big tenet in experience design and in everything we do at Network Revolution is to do things by intention and not by default, not by accident, not by reaction and just have it happen to you, but you actually proactively understand what you're doing and move forward in the direction you need to. Otherwise, business tends to go a direction you don't want it to, and that's a big piece of this puzzle. So that is one of the big elements here. Is if we're looking at marketing, sales, and delivery, we understand what is part of your sales process. If we start an experience map, if we did some experience mapping for you and your company, that is essentially where it starts, is at a very high level. Let's just figure out kind of the big stages that a customer goes through to decide on your company. And that this is one of the first steps in experience mapping. So, whether we have to interview a couple people or we're just talking to you, we at least can brainstorm a rough, high level experience map, which just starts with that. Well, they search for us on Google or something, and this is part of the marketing section, right? So, and then they click on our site and eventually fill out a form, and then we call them, or maybe not even that. Maybe they just call the office, and then we schedule them for an appointment. Or they land on our e-commerce site and they see our products and they choose to buy a product, and then we ship it to them. I mean, it's very high level here. Like, you can break it down into a couple of categories. You're going to have 1 to 3 kind of stages or major elements in each of marketing, sales, and delivery most often. And so let's just kind of find those big steps, the big milestone-y, stages of your experience. Now, we're not defining exactly every single phone call that comes through, every message or email that goes back and forth, what systems are involved, what paperwork you need. I mean, these are all details as we break it down, but at the highest level, that is your experience map. And that's where we start. This technique or this process of mapping your experience will branch in 1,000 directions. I mean, there's so many things that we can do with this as far as systems and automation, improving actual overall experience flow, really identifying how to optimize, when you do find something that really works, making sure that it proliferates through the whole organization. So it's not just this one sales guy knows how to do that, but no one else does. So that's one of the reasons you want a process, is so that people can follow it and you can continue to work on and improve it. But there's lots of things that we can do with this experience map. And oftentimes it just reveals holes to us right away, which is really nice. But when we do that, we start to see the flow and stages in between. Like, how do we get from marketing to sales, and of course in delivery, and then how does delivery loop back over to sales? I mean, it is really a cyclical experience in the ideal situation. Even if it's not an additional sale from that same person after delivery, but if it's a referral, so that becomes another sale, it loops back around. And so it's really powerful to kind of understand and keep that experience fluid, keep it, what's the word? Let me think for a second. You want it to continue. It's just continuous. It's not breaking. I can't think of the word, but regardless, you definitely want the story to continue, to not be like serious breaks and shifts in that experience, and handoffs being too rough. You definitely want it to be a very continual experience that way. It's going to bug me to the end, and maybe someone can post what I'm thinking of. Oh, hey, Tom, looks like you're on. Welcome. Definitely understanding that experience is a big piece of this pie. And from there, we can dive into a couple other elements. If we want to get into the sales area and understand our sales process a little bit more. Once we know what we're doing, we can start to see holes and gaps. Immediately, you'll start to see certain holes and gaps in your process, and you can often identify these pretty quickly. Yeah, I'm really not doing much at all for marketing. I mean, they just happen to randomly discover me on Google, not because of any particular effort of my own, and they happen to call. There's a lot of opportunity there to make sure that we're proactively connecting with them, making sure that we're guiding them down this experience process and not simply hoping they stumble upon it, right? So making sure that the stepping stones are in place, so maybe a call to actually talk to somebody is a little too rough. We ought to have some stages in between, because they don't know you. I don't know if I really want to talk to a person right now. We need to offer some other things to kind of help them understand and connect dots and things that way. So this is kind of the stepping stones of your experience that you can start to design. But that sales experience is so often neglected almost entirely. So, even marketing, you might do a few things and you have like a free download and you do some ads and yada, yada. And again, they finally call you and it's just like, boom, yeah, schedule, come in, let's serve you, and understanding though, that there are elements they need to understand. You need to get very clear on what their struggle is so that you're delivering a proper solution. You want to get very clear, and I'm of course talking of like service-based businesses at this point, but it applies, regardless. But get very clear on how the solution might aid them and what they look like. You want to qualify them to be part of your company as much as they are going to be qualifying you, whether you're the provider for them or you're the service provider. And this is a big piece of it, because you don't want the wrong types of customers either. So part of the sales process, it's dual fold there. Part of it is to actually be a filter to make sure you get the right types of customers. But then it's to address those questions and issues and make sure that you get that connection, build that relationship, and have those financial conversations like very openly, and exploring options on what to pay and how it works, and how they can actually helping them understand how they can really benefit, not just like in a very transactional manner. I've got a little pain here, can you fix it? Or I have this little thing, but help them understand there's a lot more here that you could take advantage of, and this is how that might benefit you based on what you've told me your challenge is. You can kind of see how these scripts and ideas start to develop, where you can make sure that they're really getting what they need. And there might be handoffs, but the transfer of information is very fluid. Maybe you've been keeping in-depth notes in some sort of CRM, and now the sales coordinator person can now look it up, become very familiar with them by those notes, and be able to really connect to help them explore their financing options, or whatever it might be. If there are those handoffs, sometimes these handoffs are very important, because maybe the person that does the diagnostics, that actually understands what we almost call like a sales engineer, isn't always the best one to do the final close. Maybe they have other reservations. This happens a lot in the medical space. The provider is not often the best one to actually financially close the person, because they start to get things in their head like, I don't know if they can afford it, or I don't know about this, instead of really focusing on their expertise, which is building a potential solution for their problem. If they understand that, they can build that solution. They can then hand it off to the financial person that can then help cover options to get that solution to make sure that solution comes to pass for the customer. This becomes really critical that way. If we don't have that step, we so often see like providers that design the solution, kind of the skills expert that sabotage the sale. It happens quite often, and it happens at other levels too. I mean, we've got CEOs that are too pie in the sky, like of like financial services companies or whatever. They can really connect the dots at a very high level, but when it comes down to like really closing business and serving a customer, they may not be very good at it. So they can connect the dots, get the ball started, shake hands, and then they're handing it off to sales in a way that the sales team can then get really in depth and make sure that the solution is developed. The problem is understood, the solution is developed, and a plan is presented in a way that could make sense for them, that you're finding those win-win opportunities. And if that's staged out, we know we do a few phone calls, we have a few follow-ups, you can start to then automate some of those elements. You can start to throw in different pieces like whether it be automatic follow-ups to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks, making, follow-up text messages if, a call is missed or whatever it is. You can do these types of things to just amplify your abilities to connect with more customers without having to keep it all in your head, and that becomes possible only when you have it mapped and know what it is you really need. Sometimes we look for these solutions without actually understanding what the process is. We don't know what our sales process is, but we bought this cool software that will automate the world. But it can't automate anything if we don't actually have the process mapped. And this becomes a big issue for a lot of clients. As they try to buy a solution without recognizing that there's that brainstorming stage that really needs to be developed properly before that solution could ever actually serve them in any serious capacity. And oftentimes those solutions then fizzle out. You end up canceling it because it may or may not have been the right solution, but you never had the process mapped anyway to take advantage of it, so it didn't matter. And that's one of those issues that we see is without having it defined and understood, you also don't know if that's a weak spot. So if business is going up or down, you often just attribute it to whether it be, the economy is going up and down, or the whatever it might be. It's like, it might have just been a fluke. We just haven't gotten the right types of people in lately. You're just hoping for this kind of automatic sale versus recognizing that, if we do it this way, we seem to get more business. If we actually go through this sales process versus if we go through this one or none at all. I mean, you have a point where you can actually address and say, if I adjust this, does that improve the number of people that actually, take us up on our offer? And what can I do about that? Or how do I improve that to make sure? Because I know it's right for them. You obviously have to be convinced of that. I know it's right for them. Why is it that they're not taking it? And what can I do to alter that? And so often it's just kind of hope and pray, in that versus, or just let's do different marketing and play with other things. Just try and find people that are kind of pre-prepared. And that obviously can have an impact. I mean, you can, get pre-prepared clients and people that just come in. I mean, sometimes what their need is so obvious and egregious that they will do anything, and they come in and say, yes, give it to me. Boom, let's do it. And you don't have to do any sale really whatsoever. And there are companies that survive entirely on this. And it's not a bad thing, but that is absolutely the lowest hanging fruit, the lowest of the low hanging fruit. At some point, you may not have any more of that fruit to pick, or either way, you have no control over it, versus recognizing, if we can take advantage of, we have a process and system, now we can take advantage of fruit at varying levels of difficulty and definitely cover for those times where it's hard to find the low hanging fruit. We start to get a little bit of control over our process and our system. So that covers a lot of the, just this idea and thought. What I encourage you to do and what we've been exploring this week and talking to several customers that brought this up is to define your sales process. Start by defining what it is today. So if you have a sales process already, you do, but just define what it is. So understand, what is my sales process? Might be as little as, someone at the front desk schedules them, and then I talk to them about it, and if they take it, yay or nay. But what is it today, and then what should it be? What could I do to really enhance that and recognize that? How could I measure that? Like, what could I, if I have this many appointments, how many people actually take us up on our offer? So even without making adjustments to your process, once you have it defined of what it is today, now you have a few things to measure. How many of these appointments do I have? How many of these phone calls do we get? How many of those people that take the appointment actually decide to move forward with our service or our product? What does that look like? Now you have somewhere to start. You've got somewhere you can explore if things are working and what's happening. And it looks like Brandon even joined. Hey, Brandon. Yeah, you enjoying your vacation, buddy? So that's how it goes. He just has to sit and watch me play ball, but while he's sitting on a beach somewhere or whatever he's doing. Anyway, that is part of that process. Once you've established a baseline, then you can explore how to improve it. And oftentimes, just going through that exercise of mapping out what it is today, and even measuring and in introducing some measurements at what it is today, you'll see improvement, because now you can actually watch it a little bit, and you'll just see improvement naturally, because we want to see things, numbers go up, and we'll start to fiddle with it that way. But map out those improvements and explore that, and you can really dial in a sales process that becomes very effective. And certain industries, the fact that a sales process almost doesn't exist makes this a huge advantage to many industries. And a lot of small service-based businesses and industries, suffer from this. They lack that sales process. So if you have it, you have a leg up on every possible competitor. I mean, it just becomes that way for some industries because it is so uncommon to have a well-defined sales process. By having it, you're going to start to see a huge uptick against, market share change. You're going to see all sorts of things because you actually have it defined and know what's happening there. And it is so infrequent. So not every industry is that way. I mean, there are some that are very, you got to do this just to stay competitive at all. Because everyone is doing it. It's table stakes. But there are definitely industries. We see it in healthcare spaces a lot and some other spaces where it's just so uncommon to have a truly defined sales process that it's a major opportunity for those that take it up and start to do it. So that's the soapbox for today. I wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit because I know many can benefit from that. And it has been coming up in several conversations this week. There's obviously many a conversation on the transition from sales to delivery, and even what marketing in that transition from marketing to sales and how that all looks. There's of course opportunity across the board in your experience map. But like I said, sales is such a highly neglected portion for many companies that being really intentional with it. In a new way, and not just your ability and your charisma to sell. If you have kind of front-facing sales anyway, that's great. But this process goes way beyond that. So I just wanted to emphasize that and encourage everyone to explore that. If you don't have a sales process mapped and kind of this high-level experience map, take advantage of that. Do it. Add that to your business power hour. If you have an hour or two this coming week, you're working on your business, it might be a good time to map out what your sales process looks like at the highest level. And that's a starting point. And if you're a client of ours, I'd love to see it. Even if you're not, frankly, send it over to us. We'd love to help, give critique and anything else we can, spitball ideas. But clients will definitely be connecting on these types of things in the future if you're not already doing it. And Tom, if you're still watching, you definitely can remind me if we want to explore that at some point as well. But just some thoughts and ideas. Beyond that, let's move on to the next little segment thing. Sorry for my squeaky arm here. All right, so now that we've got off the soapbox, it's always time to explore a couple other elements. And one of those, of course, is favorite things. So we've been doing like recommendations, book recommendations, and otherwise. Today, I'm not going with a book. Today's recommendation is actually a piece of technology because I'm a sucker for technology. So I guess you can take it as a grain of salt. I kind of like it all. And it becomes a hindrance in many a case. I always playing with software that it's definitely something else might work, but why not? Let's keep exploring it. Something that I found really interesting is this piece that I'm holding in my hands right here. This is what's called the Remarkable Tablet. I've got something written on it right there. It's in a case that doesn't necessarily come with it, but either way, you get the idea. It is a e-paper style tablet that gives you, allows you to basically write. That's what it's really designed to be. It's a writing tablet. So it's very natural to write on as opposed to like an iPad or something else. The surface is not glass, or it is, whatever it is, it's got like enough friction to it that it feels a lot closer to paper. At least that's the idea that they're going for. So there's some friction. It's not the slick glass feeling. the pen, everything like they've done is to try and design that. The distance from the pen to the actual element and like any lag in like it going onto the screen is just minimal. It really is a fantastic writing experience. So for me, I used journals in the past, and I still do to a degree. Almost not at all anymore, actually, because of this. But that was always the thing. I always ended up back at a journal versus tablets and things because it just wasn't, how it was organized or getting into things or the speed it just wasn't natural enough just to write, like physically write. This really, for me, comes close enough to the physical sensation of writing on paper that it really does nail it for me. And it obviously, I can put, hundreds of thousands of notebooks or whatever in here. I have different notebooks for different projects and journals and things like this that I can like jump in and out of and take notes and draw and journal and do whatever I want. It's got all sorts of other capabilities, even if you're an artist and things like this. It is only black and white, but I did want to just share it because I did find it interesting. For me, it has pretty much replaced journals. At first, I felt like this was really expensive, which for me, I jumped because I want to play with it, but I think the newest one, there is a new one coming out, by the way, so this wouldn't even be the exact one you would get. The newest one I think might be $400. This one might have been like $500 or even $600, but it's and at first I was like, well, man, you could buy a whole iPad with that. But I realized that since I use this way more than I use any iPads or any other tablets. I've had iPads in the past. I have an iPad mini right now, but really it just became a kid's game tablet, and that's about it. I just didn't have as much use for it other than just kind of consuming media and screwing around on it. But this thing has become big. I mean, I journal all the time, day and night. In work meetings, I'll take this in a lot, do all sorts of things that way. I can keep things organized. It has writing to text conversion, and then I can upload it to like Evernote or whatever I'm doing. So this has been a slick thing for me. I'm a big fan. Remarkable is the maker of this tablet, and they have a Remarkable 2. Their version 2 is coming out, I think this summer actually. That's even cooler. They added an eraser on the end of one of the pens. So this one, that's not an eraser. You actually have to click on an eraser and then erase, but it actually can flip around and then erase, which that alone will be sweet, but other benefits as well. So anyway, if you're into technology and you like to journal and things like that, the Remarkable tablet is my recommendation of the week to check out. I think it's pretty cool, and definitely recommend it for those that have a similar technical obsession, for sure, and even those that just are sick of carrying around or they have more than one journal or whatever else. It is cool. It consolidates all those things, notes, you name it, and it syncs to the cloud. I can get it on my phone. I can look up my notes on my phone. I can do all that stuff. So those are some added benefits, is I can actually sync everything up, and I have access to it all over, or share notes with colleagues or assistants or whoever. That's my recommendation of the day, or of the week, is the Remarkable tablet. And there's been plenty of book recommendations that we've given you, but we'll continue to do that as well. But today's is the Remarkable tablet. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, we would love to hear them. If you have a thought, one of the things that we are adding into this live cast is actually to address a lot more of those types of things. So if, we'll be asking throughout the week. If you get emails, we'd love to hear, have you respond to them and hear from you on issues that you're having, so we can address them live and kind of take advantage of that, explore it a little bit, and for the benefit of everyone. And we can do it as well even during the shows through comments and stuff a little bit also. So we will be adding more of that. Even today's topic overall came from some suggestions and questions throughout the week, but we'll do a little more kind of Ask Me Anything style that we'll add on to this each week as well. So that is all for this week. Have a great weekend. It is Memorial Day weekend. Take advantage of it. Hopefully you're not working too hard or working through Monday or whatever else. If you celebrate Memorial Day, enjoy the time with family. Be healthy. Be safe. I know it's still kind of crazy right now, but let's take advantage of the break and hit the ground running on Tuesday. And as I mentioned, if there are any questions, comments, or anything else, we'd love to hear them. Feel free to email us. Billy@newworkrevolution.com. You can comment on this video that will be posted, reposted, everything like that. We're monitoring all of that. And that's it for this week. For Billy Bush and My Business World Live, signing wait. Tom, whoo, last second. Because there's a delay coming through. Let's see what his question is. Have the ability to show line or graph style. Ooh, yeah, good question. So, yes, the Remarkable tablet does have template abilities. In fact, you can I think it's a third-party software that I use to do it because it's kind of like a side load, not necessarily a hack per se, but I can actually add my own templates. So either way, there's a bunch of like lined graph, grid, all sorts of stuff like that, like templates that you can put on there and just write over. And when you erase, the grid, of course, stays, and it's like a little bit faded, so you can write over it really easily. It's very nice, actually. In fact, maybe I've got an example I could show you. That's actually one right there for a week. So it's got just Monday through Friday or Sunday, whatever, a week template. That's a grid one. I don't know if you can see that on the video very well, but there's a grid behind some of those notes. That's some crazy perspective one if you want to do some wild drawing. I mean, so there's all sorts of actual templates on here as well. It's kind of cool. That's my son. That's my son as well. So he definitely enjoys it occasionally also. But yeah, you definitely have options there. And then there is some software that I use. It's not crazy user-friendly because, like I said, it's kind of like a side load deal. But I can actually take PDFs and stuff, turn them into templates, and they become templates on there, which is sweet when it comes to some of the things that we do, worksheets that we have and stuff. I create templates out of them and draw all over them. It's really cool. Anyway, you can also load PDFs on it and mark up PDFs. Some ebooks, I wish it did like Amazon Kindle kind of books, but it doesn't have like, it's not Kindle friendly or anything that way. But like EPUB books and stuff like that, same thing. You can highlight in there, write notes. It's really slick. I love that for books to be able to just kind of note it up. But most of my books are Kindle, unfortunately. I do have some EPUB books that are actually on there now, and it is cool because I can go in there, and PDF books. I can go in there and mark up and highlight and notes and stuff like that. So a few additions there. So yeah, you like screwing around with technology. I've actually found this way more worthwhile for me than like an iPad. So just that's how, the investment kind of was put into perspective for me. But yeah, take a look at that. And I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to escape, I guess. Yeah, so if there's any others. Other than that, man, we're gonna dive off. So for Billy Bush here, My Business World Live, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk next week. Thank you, everybody.